So we're on Samachei Amid Beis by the two dots, about 10 lines from the bottom. We said Machali bias. We saw this already, but we're just going to review it because it's going to launch us into the rest of the sugya. Machali bias and Machali sada. Ruvain sold Shimon a sada, or a house. And he told Shimon, I'm selling you the house now for $1,000, but when I have $1,000, I have the option to repurchase it from you. Also, it's also because in the interim, Shimon is using the house, or using the sada, and benefiting from it. At the end of the time, he's going to get back his house. Reuben's going to get back his house, and Shimon's going to keep the money as the value of whatever he used the house or he used the sada as this essentially his interest for having given his money to Reuven to hold till he paid him back. But if it came from the other direction, if Shimon said to Reuven, Shimon was the purchaser, and he said to him, when you get him, don't worry, you can sell me your house. Don't feel bad about it. When you'll get money, you'll give it back. You'll give it to me, and I'll sell you back the house. Mutter. That's not a problem. Mantano. Amar Abahuna Breda Yeshua Delay Krib Yehuda Amar Tzadach Ribis Mutter. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this wouldn't be an issue in any case, even if that is ribis. But it's not a problem with ribis because it's only going to end up being ribis if the house ends up being repurchased back to the original seller. And that's a tzad echad beribis. But just more directly, what is the pshat? Why did we say in the seifa where the suggestion came from the purchaser, where the purchaser Shimon told Reuven, when you get the money, don't worry, come back to me and you could get it back. Why is that not also ribis? Amar Rava, Seifa da Amale Midait. The Seifa is talking about where Shimon said, come back to me, and I'll at that point, I think I'll probably be willing to sell it back to you then. But he says he's reserving the right to decide not to do so. So therefore, it's certainly not ribis because he hasn't committed to anything. So tomorrow. Hahu Gavra, the Zovan Le'ara Lechavre Shaloi B'Achrais. Reuven sold Shimon a property Shaloi B'Achrais. There was no warranty, there was no title insurance from Reuven, meaning if Reuven had a prior creditor who he owed money to, that creditor could come and seize the property from Shimon. And if he does so, Shimon has no right to go back to Reuven to be compensated for having bought a property and not and had to take it away. So of course, immediately Shimon had buyer's remorse. He saw the fancy kitchen, but he wasn't thinking about the fact that Reuven was one of these, one of these Amazon guys that all of a sudden his business collapsed, and chances are there's a lot of creditors who are going after him, and chances are he's going to end up losing this house. Amalei, Amatzivas. So Reuven said to him, what are you so upset about? You're worried that it's going to be taken away from you. If they're going to take it away from you, I'm going to make you whole. I'm going to give you a gewaldige property to replace it, and I'm also going to give you whatever improvements you made to the property. I'm going to make you whole on, and any payers that were taken when they gave the property from you. I'm going to make you whole on any possible loss that you might have had. Amar Amema, Petumi Mili Be'almahu. Amema says all that Reuven is doing is empty words. He's just trying to make me be mefatim. He's trying to make him feel better, but he's not binding himself to anything. He's not making himself responsible. And if he decides not to do it, he won't do it. And certainly, it's not going to be ribis. Amar Ravashi la'amema. Time am I? What is the reason? Since it's the person who's who's benefiting, he's the one who has to make the commitment. And Lekeach over here is the one who's worried about having it taken away from him. So he has to make a t'nai. I'm only selling it to you on this condition. While over here, the meicher is committing to it. The meicher is saying, and he does. It was. I think it's talking about where it's after the. It's hard to say what. I think Taisus says that it's. This is talking about Bedavko. It's after they already agreed on the sale. He tossed this in, so that's not a real commitment. He's just saying it as a throw-in. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. But if the Lekech would say it, if Lekech would put it in, Lekech is deadly serious about it if he puts it in. Then it's a t'nai, it's a serious t'nai. So keep the Lekech by less nuya. Since Lekech is the one who has to make it as a t'nai if it's serious, so our Mishnah, it says, if he said, when you'll have money, I'm going to give it to you, it's mutter, it's not considered ribbis. This is the price that we just said before in the previous Gemara. The Meichu the Boy Lasliya over there, in the case of a sale where he's committing to replace it if it's taken away. So the Meicher is the one who has to make the t'nai. Meicher le'asni. It's not the Meicher didn't make the t'nai, but Lekech chamastim. I mean, a ma'ishna ratio ma'isna seifa. V'amrav seifa dam blemi daita. We said the seifa is the reason why in the case of the seifa, where he said l'chsheyili mo'is achzirimli. This is talking about the case. We're not talking about anymore about the giving of a warranty of providing achrayis. We're talking about where a meicher sold, where Reuven sold a property to Shimon, and so he said, if Shimon says that if I get the money, you have to return it. So the Shimon is the one who's making the t'nais, and it's a t'nai. But Reuven is the meicher. He doesn't get anything out of it. So I'm sorry, right? Reuven, sorry, the other way around. Meicher is the one who really is. The
meicher is the one who should be making the t'nai.
Right. The meicher is the one who's benefiting from this.
And in our cases, it's both the Reish and Sefer with the Lokeach.
Yeah. But I mean, the Maishna ratio, Maishna Sefer. V'amarava Sefer Damalemi Daita. We said the Sefer is talking about where he said specifically, right over here. The Lekech was the one who said it, but he reserved the right to do it if he wanted to or not. If I want to, maybe I'll let you buy it back from me. It's time that he has to, at least, I mean, yeah, it's a little hard to understand what the Hava mean of the Gemara is at this point, but the Gemara is saying that it was explained as midaita. Why did it have to be explained as midaita? We should say by default, since it's coming from the person who's not benefiting, we should assume that it's just an assurance, but it doesn't have any substance to it. When we said he did it midaiti, I mean, we're asking a kasha from a pirish of an amira. So I'm not really sure. It's not really a kasha. It's just, I guess, a further explanation. When he said midaiti, it doesn't mean that he said, I reserve the right to do this or not do it as I see fit. But rather, he just said, I'll do it, and we understand it that it's bitume mili bialma, and it's only if he wants to. Of course, if he wants to, he could do it, but he's not obligated. Hahush chevmera. There was a person who was on his deathbed. The cost of logita ledvisu. He wrote a get to his wife. Anged isn ve'isnach, and he started to sigh. He was writing this get to his wife because he didn't want it to be neifel yibam. But he wasn't so happy about it. This is what you're keeping. I'm about to die, and you're worried about yourself. I prefer not to die, and I'd rather remain married to my wife of 80 years. Amalei. So his wife said to him, "Michael misnachas. What are you getting upset about? she said to him, if you pull through, I'm going to be yours forever and ever. It's very romantic. So Amr of Zvid, Petuma Mili Be'almahu. Zvid said, even though she said this, she was sort of she didn't have much choice in the matter. The guy's on his deathbed. You got to say whatever is needed to make him feel better. Amalei Ravacha Midichte LeRavina. Ravacha Midichte asked Ravina, "V'la Petuma Mili Mai." What are you saying? You're saying that when she said it, it wasn't so substantial. It didn't have any particular. She didn't really mean it. Let's say she didn't. Let's say she did mean it. When it comes to a get isha, the feelings of the woman are pretty irrelevant. A man can be megarish the isha whether she wants to or not. So she's volunteering. This get that you're giving me, it's not going to be anything if you make it through. It's not up to her. He gives her a get. She has no say in the matter. So frekta racham difti lavina ilav etume mili mai b'dida kaim lemishti tnai begita b'didei kaim lemishti tnai. It's not up to her. It's up to him. So very similar to the Gemara's before, where she has no say in the matter. So what does it help for her to say if you make it that the get is not going to be a get? Zak the Gemara, no. Mal de tema who gufa adaita dida kagomer v'yav gita. The reason why we're saying that it's Ketume Mili Be'alma is because we could say that when he gave the get, he only gave it saying, if this is what you want, I'll give you a get, because you don't want to be Neifel Yibam. So maybe his giving of the get is totally in what she wants. He made it subject to her wishes. So that's what we're saying, that no, it's not so, or even if he did, when she says it, it doesn't mean anything. So therefore, when any t'nai that he gave, he sort of delegated to her the right to make time in the get, is not going to make a difference because she doesn't even really mean it. She just wants to get out of the yibum, and she's just saying this because the poor guy's on his death. Now the Gemara is going to talk about asmachta. Asmachta, we have asmachta, I think where it's most commonly it comes up, or at least what I remember it mostly from, is for an explanation of why gambling is also. If someone gambles and he says, I'm going to put down $1,000 on the red, and then it comes up black and he loses $1,000, he never really intended to lose $1,000. Or let's see, bets on the pigeons. I think that's what the Gemara talks about. He says, I'm going to pay $1,000. I'm betting $1,000 that my pigeon is going to win. He believes his pigeon is going to win. So the question is a smachta kani, when a person doesn't really, he's saying something, but he's just saying it as a smachta. He doesn't really believe it's going to happen, that he's going to lose. Is that really a kinyan? Zok the Gemara. Hilveyu al sadeh. So this is from our Mishnah before, the Sefer of the Mishnah, where we said Hilveyu al sadeh. If someone lent money, Ruvain lent money, Shimon lent money to Ruvain, and Ruvain said, my sada is meshubah to this. And Shimon said to Reuben, if you don't pay me within 3 years, harei shali, your field worth $2,000 belongs to me. Harei shaloi. You could make such an agreement. So Zok the Gemara, Amar Avuna, Shas matan mois kana hakol. We're talking about again. Shimon had lent $1,000 to Ruvain, and Shimon said to Ruvain, that field worth $2,000. If you don't pay me in 3 years, it's going to belong to me. So we've already discussed this is not. We're not talking about an issue of ribis, because this is all taking place later. It's going to be a penalty that he's going to pay him from that point on. It's not an extra payment for waiting for the money. So Amar Avuna, b'shas matan mois, and it's certainly at the very least it's tzad echad beribis. So Amar Avuna, b'shas matan mois kan. If this deal or this penalty was agreed upon at the time that Shimon gave Reuben the money, then it's a good kinyan, meaning if at the end of the 3 years Reuben doesn't come up with the money, Shimon gets the field. He gets the bonus. He gets a $2,000 field in return for the $1,000 loan. So kana akol la'achar matan mois. But if Reuben had already borrowed the money from Shimon, and then afterwards Shimon pops up and says, "Oh, by the way, if you don't, he already gave him money, the $1,000. He says, if you don't pay this back, you have to provide me with your $2,000 field." And Reuben says, "Okay, loikana l'keneged ma'isa." He's only kinda that he has a kinyan as far as for the $1,000 that he has that Reuben has borrowed, but he doesn't get the entire $2,000 field. Rav Nachman says even after matan mayis, he's going to be kind of the whole thing. So this is all the question of whether this is considered an asmachta. So we say Rav Huna said that as soon as if he makes the t'nai at the time the money is given over, then it's not considered an asmachta. It's an agreement. This is a penalty that they're agreeing to. So the person who's saying it, the borrower, he really means it. He wants to get the money, so he says he's committing himself to giving this valuable field. But afterwards, once he already has the money, then it's only an asmachta. Rav Nachman says even after the money was given, because since he agreed to it, it's hard to say exactly why, since he didn't have to, but I guess he feels an obligation. He owes him the money, and he feels like he's willing to do this in return for the fact that the person lent him money. He's willing to commit himself. He expects he's going to be able to pay back, but he really means that if he doesn't pay back, it should go to him. So it's not an asmach. Avad Rav Nachman Uvda Gabi Reish Galusa Kishmaitze. Rav Nachman actually did like this, meaning, I guess he borrowed money, or someone had borrowed money, and afterwards he committed himself to a larger collateral than the amount of the loan. And Rav Nachman said you have to, and if you didn't, Rav Nachman said, since you didn't pay it back, you have to provide the entire collateral, larger than the loan. Kar Rav Yehuda l'shtar. Rav Yehuda ripped it up. Amalei Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa said to Rav Nachman, Rav Yehuda kar l'shtar. This star, that it was a star basically memorializing this agreement to make his field that was worth more be meshubed to the loan. He ripped it up. He said, "What do you mean? It's after the borrower obligated himself after the loan already took place. It's only an asmachta. It's only an insincere offering, but he doesn't really mean to do it. He doesn't expect not to pay back, and therefore it's not kana." Amalei. So Rav Nachman said, "Do you think like it was when the Reish Galusa said to Rav Nachman that your star that you had said was enforceable was ripped up by Rav Yehuda?" Rav Nachman said, "Okay, listen, it wasn't the dar that carry, it wasn't the kid who ripped it up. Gavar Rabakar, Rav Yehuda's a great Talmid Chacham. He certainly knows what he's talking about. Chazabei time Abakare, he must have seen something wrong with the star, meaning he wasn't masking that Rabbi Yehuda disagreed with him. He said there must have been something specific. It must have been the Edom were no good, or something was wrong with it. But according to this star, Rav Nachman stuck to his guns, and he said that it's Einach Hanami, the case that even if a borrower makes a commitment to provide a mashkin that's worth more than the loan, even though it's after the loan was already made, it's still going to be enforceable. It's not going to be called an asmachta. Ikad Amri, Amalei, Dardika Kare. He said it was Rabbi Yehuda ripped it up. It's as if he's a child. The Kul Amal Gabididi, Bedina Dardikinin. Sounds a little bit self-assured. Rav Nachman said everyone is considered like a child. Legabe me, I am the final word on dinim. And since I said that it's enforceable, it's enforceable. Hadar Amar Rav Nachman. Later on, Rav Nachman thought about it and he changed his mind. He said, "I feel b'shas matan lamois loikana." v'loy klum. Rav Nachman went to the opposite extreme. Originally, Rav Nachman was said that these types of agreements, whether it's b'shas matmais, whether it's entered into by the borrower at the time of the loan, or whether it's entered into afterwards, it's always considered to be enforceable. Now he's going back and he's saying even less than Rav Huna. Rav Huna said at least if you agree to it b'shas matmais, it's kind of, but afterwards it's not. Now Rav Nachman said even b'shas matmais, it's not kind of. Even b'shas matmais, it's an asmachta. The borrower didn't really mean it. He just said it because he thought he was going to be able to pay back. But if he would have thought that he wasn't going to pay back, he never would have agreed to pay back more than what he borrowed. So Rav Nachman went to the opposite extreme. Eisvei Rav Nachman. So Rav asked Rav Nachman, according to his final decision, where Rav Nachman ended up, that he says that this is always called an asmachta when a borrower obligates himself to pay a field that's worth more than the loan. If we ask from our Mishnah said, if this is pretty much the case of the Mishnah, where the lender said to the borrower, if you don't pay me back within 3 years, then this sada belongs to me. We say it belongs to him. So Zakt Gemara, Amalei, Ani Aimer Asmachta Kanya. Umenyumi Aimer Asmachta Loy Kanya. He said to him, let's see Rashi. It's a very interesting way this Gemara is set up, the way Rav Nachman dealt with this. Rav Nachman said, Ani Aimer Asmachta Kanya. I had originally said that Asmachta's Kanya. Zakt Rashi, you see, Ragal Aimer Kana Akol. Like I said at the beginning, before I changed my mind, I said that the asmachta is kind of, and he's or it's not an asmachta, and he's kind of the whole thing. The asmachta kanya. Aval Menyumi chalakalai. Menyumi disagreed with me, but Zirani midvari, he convinced me to change my mind. V'hasmachtahi havtacha be'alma lismech al devara shemla yimalei devara v'yitloi shava masayim b'mana. This is an asmachta because he's saying I'm going to give double. I'm going to give 200 back in returns for 100. So he said, why don't you address yourself to Menyumi? Why are you asking me? He's the one who convinced me that this is an asmachta. So I'm not going to, I agreed with him, but he's the originator of this shita. So go to him. Zakt Gemara, Ula Menyumi kasha, masnisin. So Zakt Gemara says, Taka, what is the answer? Nachman just said go to Menyumi, but Menyumi it's still shver from the Mishnah in the end. So either you could say the Mishnah is going to look at Rabbi Yossi who says that asmachta is kanya. That means it's a different Tana. There's one Tana that says asmachta Menyumi, and Rav Nachman are saying like the Tana who says asmachta like kanya, but maybe our Mishnah is going like the Mandam who says asmachta kanya. In Bava Basra, there's a case where someone gave to a shlish, someone had paid a part of his debt, so the rest of the note of the shtar that says what the debt is, he gave to a shlish, and then the borrower agreed that if he didn't pay within a certain time, that the note should go over, the shtar should go over to the lender, even though he only owed part of the money, and then the lender's going to be able to take the whole thing. So this is a question. Rabbi Yossi says that you do, even though the borrower is giving over more, he's going to end up owing more than what he borrowed, even though, and it's asmachta. He says it's kanya, and we give it over. That's one teretz. One way of explaining our Mishnah is it's going according to Rabbi Yossi. Ibai Seimer, D'Amalei Knimi Achshav. Or else it could be, and this is the way we learned the Mishnah from the beginning when we're talking about ribbis, when we're talking about the ribbis aspects of the Mishnah. We say it's talking about where he's kind of me'achshav. He's saying that not that he's going to be kind of that property all the way at the end, but rather it's going to be kani from the beginning. And we're talking about, like we said in the Gemara, as far as ribbis, we're talking about where there was a shlish that was going to give over the payers to. But since it's kani me'achshav, since if he's saying from the time of the loan that it's going to belong to you, So then it's not an asmachta. He's saying it goes to the lender immediately. So you can't say that, oh, I just meant it in case I never really meant it, because he's giving it to him on the spot.
Based on that, I know.
I'm sorry, what I know?
Isn't it, yeah, I mean, if he's paying double. So if it's take a regular Kenyan.
First of all, there's no I know for karkais.
Okay.
Second of all, it's not a sale. It's a loan with a penalty if he doesn't pay it back. So maybe it's ribis, but it's not I know. But certainly not I know because it's kark. Secondly, it's not I know because it's not a sale. It's a loan where he's giving a collateral that's worth more, that has a penalty aspect to it, that he's going to have to pay more than what he lent. Which we've said, a penalty is okay. It's very hard to distinguish between what's a penalty and what's ribis. But in this case, it's only if he doesn't pay it back that he has to give it. So certainly according to Yehuda, who says tzad ribis, tzad echad ribis is pata, you're not going to have it. It's not going to be ribis. But even without that, this is a penalty. Amalei mar Yenuko mar Kashisha b'neder of Chizda l'Ravashi. This Mar Yenuka and Mar Kashisha, who were the children of Chizda, said to Ravashi, Hachinam am Naradoi mishmeder of Nachman. This is what the Nadoim said b'shem of Nachman. Hayaspachta bizmane kanya beloy zmane loika. It's only kind of bizman, meaning if you get to the pastor says it means at the end of the 3 years, if he doesn't pay it, he's kind of. But if it's beloy zmane, until you get to that time, he's not kind of. So what are you saying? He said, whether it's an asmacht or not, or whether it's me'achshav or not, it doesn't make a difference. Certainly, the lender is not going to own it unless the time came that they made up that he has to pay, and he didn't pay. So what does it have to? What are you saying? So if he met him during the Zman, meaning if he made up 3 years, and after a year, the lender came across the borrower. V'amalei kni, and the borrower said to the lender, you know what, it's not looking good. I don't see any way I'm going to come up with the money. You could be kind of the karka. Kani basar's money. Kani is kind of. Because this is for real. This is not an asmachta. At this point, he doesn't have to say anything, and he volunteers to give it to him. So it must be that he really is giving it to him. But if it's after the zman, meaning the 3 years are up, and the lender comes to the borrower, and the borrower says, "Oh, you can keep the property now." Loikon. In that case, he's not koine. Means even though it was a smachta originally, but now he's been koine. He's not when he did it before the zman was up. So now he's making a new assertion to the lender, saying, "You know what? I'm sincerely giving up on this property, and now you can have it." So that's makna the karka to the lender. But if it's after the time that it was already due, when the loan was due, and the borrower said to the lender, "You could be kind of like Kani." He's not kind. My time. Why is it would seem the other way around? In the first case, he didn't have to say it, so you'd think that should be an asmachta, and after it's due, he really owes him the karka. So according to what he had originally said. So the Gemara explains, my time, he says the reason why after the loan comes due, he says it's not because he really wants to give him the karka, it's because he's embarrassed. He owes him the money, he doesn't have the money, so therefore he's saying it. So that's the Gemara of Elohi. And it's not so. Even if it was before the time of default, within the 3 years, still the lender is not kind. He's saying, let him, I'm telling him he could be kainet. I don't really mean that he should be kainet at the end of the time, but like this, he's not going to be waiting to get his money at the end of the time, come to me, bother me, give me my money, give me my karka. He'll just assume he has the karka, but he never really intends to give it over. Okay, let's say one more shtickle, because I gotta go in 5 minutes. Amar Papa, Haya Smachta, Zimnin Kanya, Zimnin Loy Kanya. Sometimes it's Kaina, sometimes it's not. Ashke Gatoshasi Shechra Kani. If at the end of the, right, so we're talking about, again, the borrower, the lender had said, if at the end of the 3 years you don't pay me the money, I get your property worth 2,000. And the borrower agreed to it. So at the end, the 3 years are up, and the lender seeks out the borrower, and he finds he's drinking beer in the tavern. Kani. Then the lender is kainet, because the borrower clearly has given up. He knows he's not getting the money, and therefore, at this point, he's masking that the field should belong to the lender. But if he finds that he's still looking around trying to drum up money to pay back what he owes, loikani, he's not kind, because he's still searching. He's not willing to give up his property. That's a very sensible taina. He says, what are you saying that he went to the tavern because he gave up on getting the money? It's not that he gave up the money. He's just he's overwhelmed by his debts. He's trying to forget his problems. It's not that he's not going to still try to find, but right now he just had too much. He went to hang out and feel better.
The Irish style.
Exactly, yeah. He said, I'll deal with it tomorrow. But right now, I'm going to forget my troubles, drown my troubles in beer. Inami, or else, the reason why he's drinking beer is not because he's given up, but rather he's very assured. He knows he can go party because someone else told him, I'm going to provide you with money to pay back your debts. If he says, if he's makbid on the amount of the money, Zak Gemara, that means if he says to him that I'm going to sell, listen, I need some time. I'm selling my stuff. I'm selling whatever. I'm making a fire sale, but I'm only going to sell it if I get the full price for my things. Vade kani. In that case, he's certainly kani, because he's not able to sell his property because he's waiting to get the proper amount for it. So it's not really realistic that he's going to get the money. So he must intend to really give up his property to this lender. Says to him, no, maybe if I were to make a real fire sale and let everyone buy things for cheap, so whatever I have will then everyone will know I'm under pressure, they'll make lower offers. So therefore, he doesn't really intend not to get the money. He's just trying to maximize the amount of money he can get so he can pay back the lender. And therefore, he's not really being Saimach Das now to give him the property. That if he's not willing to sell his land, because land is the most valuable thing, the people don't like to give up their land, and he's not doing that. So then Vadekni. Then that means that he's willing to give up the property because he knows that he's giving up. He knows he's not going to be able to get together the money, so therefore he's holding on to whatever he can, and the property that was put as a mashkin, he's going to give up on. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Bez Hashem, continue tomorrow at 6:15 in Shul.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Have a great day.